Barns burned down. Now I can see the moon. And that's like my father, seeing the opportunity that losing everything gave us.
There are parents who give their children a map. And then there's parents who hand them a compass without a needle, a story without an ending, a car without an engine, and a dream too big for the bank account.
But all of that happened because he had a dream and he really wanted to matter.
And the belief that somehow everything's going to work out. Lori Thicke was raised by a father like that. His name was Dacker. Dacker was a war veteran, salesman, a dreamer, a schemer, a hustler in the old-fashioned sense of the word. He chased ideas the way some people chase gold. Liquid manure in bottles, hearing aids, Christmas trees, horses in a house. Businesses that began with hope, but often ended in a disaster.
From about 14 on, I figured I better help him make some decisions here because these are bad decisions.
He could lose the rent, he could lose the car, he could even lose the house, but he never lost his love for his children. When Lori was 10 years old, her mother left. Lori and her younger brother Brad were put on a night train to Toronto and into the care of Dacker, their father. A man with very little money, almost no plan, and an extraordinary capacity to believe that tomorrow would still be magnificent.
There was something spectacular in growing up with that level of denial.
And then, in one of the most unforgettable scenes in her memoir, picture the family returning to their small farmhouse outside Kirkland Lake, and they find it burned to the ground. Everything gone. No insurance, no safety net, no clear next step. Well, Lori sees ruin. Her brother sees homelessness. What does their father see? Freedom.
Now I can see the moon.
And that is the strange magic of Lori Thicke's new memoir, Dreamer's Daughter, Surviving My Childhood and Raising My Father. It's not a tidy story. It's not a sentimental story. It's not a celebrity-adjacent story, even though the Thicke name is known to many Canadians. It's something much deeper.
I believe in dreams. I believe in dreams like roadmaps.
It's a daughter trying to understand the father who saved her and failed her. The mother who left, and she never stopped hurting from it. The childhood that made her fierce, funny, restless, resourceful, and eventually extremely talented writer. Lori would go on to build a life far from the mining roads of Northern Ontario. She earned an MFA in creative writing. She moved to Paris. She founded a language company and helped create Translators Without Borders, a global humanitarian organization, and one built on a simple but profound idea. People need to be understood in the language they understand. And maybe there's a thread running through her entire life. A little girl trying to understand her parents, a writer trying to understand her childhood, a founder trying to help the world understand herself, and a Father's Day show that is truly profound.
Oh, I'm definitely a dreamer, but, a more sensible dreamer maybe than my father.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman. Thank you for listening to Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast. And ratings and reviews, well, they're always welcome and they're always appreciated.
Lori Thicke, welcome to Chatter That Matters.
Thank you, Tony. Oh my God, you are such a good writer. That was a beautiful intro.
Well, thank you. Lori, I did something I haven't done in Chatter That Matters. I read your book this weekend. I said, I need you on the show this Thursday because it's my Father's Day show. And I thought it would be just beautiful to tell the story because no matter how wild your dad was, there's so much love that roars through your book. So when did you realize that the story you wrote about him was not just about him, but about you as well?
I started to write it, like you said, as a tribute to my father in Paris. I started working with the writers group, including the best-selling author Janet Skesley-Charles of the Paris Library. And they immediately identified that this was also the story of a young girl growing up with an eccentric father, with all the adventures, but it wasn't just a series of anecdotes. It was actually growing up in that environment, what it meant, what it taught me, how it made me become who I eventually became today.
When I was reading the book and picturing Dacker, I saw him as sort of a Walter Matthau character. So for someone who's not yet read Dreamer's Daughter, tell me who this Dacker character was, not only from the eyes of the daughter, but how the world would see him.
Everybody actually who ever saw him would say, what a character your father is. You should write a book about him. But there's there's the funny things. There's the funny things that he did because he dared, because he made mistakes, because he tried again and again when things went seriously bad. But all of that happened because he had a dream and he really wanted to matter. Chatter that matters. My father wanted to matter. He wanted to be a somebody with a capital S. And that drove him to keep trying, no matter how many times he failed, no matter how many things blew up or caught fire or otherwise ended badly.
This has got to be a movie one day because it's this lovable character. As you said, he dreams, he's got a heart of gold. He loves his kids unconditionally, but everywhere he walks, it's almost like, was it Pigpen and the Peanuts, cloud of dust around him? In this case, it was just this cloud of failure.
And I had to cut so many out of the book because you just can't keep telling these stories. But for example, you mentioned the liquid manure. That was one of those ideas that he thought was a really good idea. And it was. There's always some core that is a really good idea. So he thought that liquid manure would be great for city dwellers who didn't want to have real horse manure. Got the runoff from a farmer's field through the horse manure pile, and he made this beautiful golden liquid, which he called Dax Liquid Gold, put it in bottles. And unlike some of his businesses, it was actually a success. It was a success from the beginning. And then the nursery stores all over Southern Ontario, the garden centers that were selling this product, Dax Liquid Gold, would put it in the windows. Well, it was basically a stoppered bottle of methane gas. As the sunlight hit these bottles all over Southern Ontario, they exploded.
Dax Liquid Gold.
Yes.
The family returns to this farmhouse and finds it burned to the ground. You got no insurance, no home, no safety net. And your father looks at the ashes. Instead of crying, he says, now we're free. I never really grew up with firm ground. There's a lot of shifting sand in my life, but nothing compares to this.
It was crazy. But in the moment, Brad and I, my brother, were obviously, we didn't know where we were going to go, where we were going to live. We lost everything except we had some clothes with us. It was all gone and we didn't have any money. In the moment, we were quite worried. But for my father, and he wasn't wrong. It was an incredible opportunity to just do anything we wanted. There's this, I think it's from the 1700s, this Japanese expression that I start the book with. Barns burned down. Now I can see the moon. And that's like my father, seeing the opportunity that losing everything gave us.
Your mother leaves you when you're 10 and your brother is 5. As an adult looking back, I can understand maybe not wanting to be attached to your dad because this constant roller coaster, but how do you rationalize the fact that you two were also somebody she was willing to give up on?
I understood a lot more writing the book. It brought me to a sort of catharsis about my mother. I understood how much she regretted what she did, how leaving for another man, she wasn't aware of how much that would cost her. The pain of that decision, I really came to understand that in the book and came to forgive her, which I unfortunately didn't forgive her when she was alive.
Your subtitle, Surviving My Childhood and Raising My Father. When did you really feel that your job was going to be parenting the parent?
I think we all start putting our parents on a pedestal. I definitely had my dad on a pedestal so that anything he said, and especially his business advice, all of it, I just believed it all. So it was only when he moved us, admittedly, it was because he caught me taking drugs. But I was 14 and he moved us suddenly out of the house that we had been renting in Brampton. He moved us to London where we were sleeping on, he was sleeping on the couch. I was sleeping in a tiny little bedroom of our uncle who was fairly poor as well. I started feeling then like maybe he doesn't have a plan, like you said. Maybe he doesn't know what he's doing. As time went on from about 14 on, I figured I better help him make some decisions here because these are bad decisions.
And you talk about poverty in the book, but it doesn't read as much as poverty as it is, again, almost what he said with freedom, that within this world where you had very little, there still had imagination. There was this adventure, road trips, jokes, wild possibilities. horses and schemes. I mean, how did your father find a way, almost like a magician, deflect you from the realities of not having anything to the possibilities that next day you could have everything?
I have a son who's a psychologist, and I know from his training and that denial is bad. We are not supposed to be in denial. We're supposed to accept the facts as they are ahead of us. But there was something spectacular in growing up with that level of denial. For example, I didn't know till I got to university that we weren't upper class. The way my father just presented everything, we were upper class. We just simply had no money, but that was temporary and it was going to be reversed. So I think that kind of denial was actually a gift. And because my father always believed that the next big thing was around the corner and he was going to be a huge success with this business or that business, it all kind of made sense.
And, you grew up in Kirkland Lake, and for my American listeners, that's in northern Ontario. It's really known for its gold and silver and his boom and bust and big dreams. Did your dad almost have that mentality of the prospector way? Do you think that was part of his DNA?
I think that was huge, huge. The idea that you can strike it rich, but also the gold. I mean, he was working on a gold machine into his 60s. So any money that he made in one business would go into this gold machine that he put every single technique that you can put together so that he could get the gold, extract it out of the fine sands on say, a riverbank. He spent everything on this, but the machines never worked, or else he never got to the point of finding out if they worked, because something would happen. Like one time he was sheltering his welder from the rain with a raincoat over his head, and the sleeve of the raincoat got caught in the machine on its inaugural run, and the centrifuge was turning. The sleeve got caught in the fan belt. It broke the machine.
Nothing seemed to ever push him on his back feet. That no matter what happened to him, he seemed to have this incredible sense of resilience. And I'm wondering if there's a lesson in life for all of us out there, because there's a lot of headwinds out there.
He lived on hope. He could see the future in the next big thing. So even while he was just suffering the defeat of something like the manure blowing up, or all of his cars catching fire on the way to the ferry, he could see the next business idea, or he could see a way to make it better. But I think the message is definitely hope and seeing beyond what's happening to you right now and seeing the future, what could be.
I sense in reading your book that you realize that you have a lot of Dacker in you. And I don't mean that in the sense of misfortune follows you around, but you became an entrepreneur at a very young age, 17 years old.
That's for sure, but it's also all the lessons my father taught me. I mean, mostly I had to do the opposite of what he taught me, but lots of those lessons were good, and seeing the opportunities. Daring was a big lesson for him. I started this flower business when I was 17, sold it a few years later, and then when I was 28, I moved to Paris and started a business that I was to run for 40 years, as well as the nonprofit. But that was all just the idea that you can do anything. And that was from my father.
Why Paris and this business? I mean, you'd almost dismiss it as an afterthought, because I know this book is dedicated to your dad, but as a father of two children, I was really proud of you. I mean, that's a big move. And starting that at a time where I would argue that woman-led enterprise was more of an anomaly. You have to say those 40 years is quite an accomplishment.
It was definitely an exciting ride. I think, well, it's maybe like my father with us losing everything. You start something new from nothing. I could believe it was possible because we did it so many times. We started from nothing and built something. So when I went to Paris, it wasn't that stunning an idea. You just start from nothing and you make something happen.
But you carried it forward for 40 years. Well, I would argue that your dad might not have had the attention span to stay with something for 40 years.
It's true. Both my brother and I have turned out to be super stable despite the way that we grew up. My brother, who barely had a proper home, builds luxury homes for people. And he's been doing the same thing for as long as I was in my business.
Your upbringing puts incredible things in the knapsack. It's where you choose to go with it is quite interesting.
Oh my God, I love that image. Putting incredible things in the knapsack.
When we come back, Lori talks about how much of her dad is within her. And then I end the show talking about my dad and all dads.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman, host of Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. Ideas matter. Ideas are the oxygen of human endeavor. They breathe life into how we work, live, and play. Ideas let us create and innovate and overcome complex and often challenging circumstances. Big or small, revolutionary or evolutionary, almost every positive step forward begins with a good idea. So bring your ideas to RBC because they matter, and they'll bring theirs because you matter. Ideas happen at RBC.
The book became an instant bestseller. Well, that surprised the hell out of me. But it's not even that. It's the way people respond to this quirky story by saying, I relate. Whether they relate to a parent who's loving, a parent who's not so loving, whether they relate to a bad sexual experience or finding their way after a troubled youth, whatever. Like all over the country are writing that they relate to this book.
Today, my special guest is Lori Thicke, and I absolutely loved her new memoir, Dreamer's Daughter, Surviving My Childhood and Raising My Father. Now, the other thing I love about you as a writer is it's full of humor. I'm sorry I keep saying Dacker instead of your dad, but I just love the name Dacker as well. I have to believe he had that same sense of humor. It's almost Jerry Seinfeld in the sense it's so insightful. It's just your observation about life and not taking it that seriously.
Some of the things are funnier now than they were at the time. Like the time that his truck rolled down the hill and through a chain link fence into a yacht dealership, knocking over 3 brand new beautiful yachts. That's way funny now. It wasn't funny at the time with the policewoman and the crowd gathered around and then finding out. I came upon that scene and I was like, oh my God, Dad, look what happened. And he was like, well, I didn't know my parking brakes weren't working.
Even still, that could have scarred you for life. I mean, is it fair to say that you see a movie coming out of this book?
Oh my goodness, yes. And we've already been approached by producers. People are definitely interested in making a film of this. So if you want to make a film of it, you're going to have to move very quickly.
Who would you cast as your dad?
Oh my goodness. Well, okay, if money was no issue, it would be George Clooney. He looked like him and everything. And George has such a great range. Seth Rogen has a bit of the non-sophisticatedness of my father.
I want to ask you quickly about the Thicke family name. I mean, many Canadians know Alan, Todd, and Robin Thicke, but you have a very different branch of the family story. Did they ever intertwine?
The Thicke family growing up, because they were the rich Thickes and we were the poor Thickes, they influenced me a lot, but mostly in making me feel like the poor Thicke. But recently, both Robin and Todd have been super helpful. Robin in the sense of really encouraging me to tell my truth and to go deeper. That was really helpful and a good sense of permission too. And Todd has just been amazing, actually supporting me, championing me, helping me every step of the way, and even going on stage with me. So we went back to the hometown of Kirkland Lake. We did a presentation at the LaSalle Theater. It was so much fun. And the hometown crowd just were so thrilled to see Todd Thicke on stage.
When you write a memoir like this, it means telling the truth, but also means exposing the lives of people you love. Was there ever a time when you wrote this saying, can I really say this or should I say this? Or did you have an editor or a mentor or a muse that said you have to say that?
In my head, I knew I had to say certain things, even the things that made me look bad. Because if I didn't tell those things, then there wasn't really a deeper truth to it. But I could not have told the story if my mother was still alive because it would really have hurt her. My father, I'm so sorry that he's not alive to see this. He would be having so much fun right now.
After writing this book, are you still the dreamer's daughter or have you become the dreamer?
Oh, I'm definitely a dreamer, but, a more sensible dreamer maybe than my father. I believe in dreams. I believe in dreams like roadmaps. I mean, there's no point to dream something crazy. There was someone recently who said, well, we should not follow our dreams, but follow our abilities. I don't wholly subscribe to that. I think we need our dreams to take us farther than we thought we'd ever go.
And is there a story in the book that you didn't put in that now you wish you had?
My godparents were a Count and Countess of Albania, Lika and Richard Bachaku. Our home was briefly the planning center of a coup to take over from the communist government in Albania. And my father, meanwhile, is embarrassing them because they were very, very, very elegant people. Obviously European. My godmother, Lika, spoke 7 languages. And there's my father with a towel around his waist, cooking dinner and saying the most outrageous things in front of this general who was plotting a coup, which never took place.
Lori, I always end my shows with my 3 takeaways. The most important thing that you share in this book, and we talked about it earlier when you said, when the barn burns down, now I get to see the moon, based on an old Japanese proverb. And that is a proverb that obviously your dad lived his entire life with, but it's something of so important to all of us. Circumstances happen. Today, there's an awful lot of headwinds. We're not quite sure what the next day is going to bring. Is it peace in Iran or are they back at war? But no matter what happens in front of you, there's still opportunity. There's still a place to go. The second thing is I love you push back because I'm a believer as well that dreams matter. Even if they're dreams that as you get older in life might not be feasible anymore, I think it's still so healthy to dream about possibility and positivity and ideas and making them happen. And I think the last thing I really congratulate on is how talented you are as a writer, how gifted you are as someone to interview. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. But at the same time, you have such humility. I tried to push you to talk about your business, and you really just wanted to keep this talking about the memoir and your dad, and yet you're such an accomplished business person as well. And even when I pushed you a little bit further, you had to deflect that and talk about the accomplishments of your brother. So I want to remind the listeners as they read this book, and I hope you do, because you will laugh out loud several times, that you're reading the words of a woman that grew up in the most unexpected fashion with the most unexpected father, who clearly loves her father like any father wants to be loved by their child, and probably graciously given everything he put you through. And for all of that and more, I'm just so honored that you're going to be my Father's Day edition of Chatter That Matters.
Oh, thank you so much, Tony. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
If you've been with me from the beginning, you know that my dad had mental health issues, self-medicated with alcohol and binge drinking. And I didn't like him in my teens. I don't want to use the word hate, but I just was so appalled by this human being and precarious situations he put my family in and what my mother had to shoulder just to keep a roof over our heads. Later, much later, I realized it was mental health and called it manic depressive. Today it's bipolar. And later in life, he got a lot of those demons out of control just by his sheer will. And when he died with the love of his grandkids and his kids. I don't do enough to talk about the magic he brought to my life and those around us. My dad championed the underdog. This kid in our neighborhood, Charlie, that back then they called him retarded. My dad would take him out for a cup of coffee, listen to him, let him know that he was important. When we took the train up to visit my grandparents, he knew every conductor by name, and he cared about who they were and their life. Before alcohol really took over him, he worked for the conference board and spent a lot of time selling research studies to very senior people. And yet he never was in awe of them. He just saw everybody as part of the human race. And I hope if he's looking down, he'll realize that graciousness and that generosity and that respect is something that I hope I'm holding in his honor, because it truly is, I think, a quality that I'm very proud of. And I'm very proud of RBC for letting me share these stories of people that overcome circumstances and change the world, and the underdogs that find a way through all of this. And who knows, maybe it all began with my dad many, many years ago. But to my dad and to all the fathers out there, whether it's your children you love, your nephews, your nieces, whether it's being a big brother, coach on a sports team, the ones that mentor, the role models, the world needs more fathers like you, and thank you for all you do to make this planet a better place. It's Tony Chapman. Thanks for listening to Chatter That Matters. Let's chat soon.